Hello, I'm doing my monthly roundup of the books that I've been reading this month, and the things I'm going to be covering are Qabalistic Tarot by Wang, I want to get that name right, and Brutally Honest by Melanie Brown. Okay, they're the two books that I've been reading over the last month. Other things that I've been doing over the last month as well, I got a soul reading done, which has been a really positive experience. So I just wanted to share that and sort of put it out there really as a recommendation for other people. I don't know how interested people are in that. It was quite a new idea to me. It wasn't something that I'd looked into before. I actually won the soul reading because, to be honest, I probably wouldn't have put myself out there to do it otherwise, because it's sort of a little bit of a vulnerable, you know, you've got to be sort of vulnerable and be, what's your soul? It's pretty deep. And I was really shocked that I won. I had no idea. I'm not very in touch with my intuition, unfortunately. And I was a little bit nervous as well, because I thought, oh my God, what sort of thing is going to come back? What if it comes back and says, God, you're a complete arsehole? But it was a very positive experience, and really made me feel sort of introspective and looking inside myself and trying to think of myself from my own inner feelings rather than perhaps how I think other people see me and view me. So it was really good, and there were some things that were brought up which I sort of resonated with and thought, oh yeah, that sounds, you know, like something I can relate to and things, and also maybe something that I want to look into again that I haven't looked into for a long time. And there were also a couple of things which were completely new to me, which I was like, okay, I'll have a look into that. And having looked into those things, they've been really interesting. I'm like, wow, I'm really glad that I've looked into this. This is definitely something which appeals to me and appeals to my nature. So overall, very positive experience. So positive, in fact, that all of us in the house have ended up getting a soul reading because it was just, and everybody's enjoyed it, and it's been really interesting, a really great experience, especially, you know, we're at a time of a lot of change in the world, and it's good to sort of look inside yourself and find your own strength and deal with your own things and move forward. The person who did the soul reading is Liz Bolter at Return to Wisdom, and I'd give an absolutely massive recommendation for her. I mean, I think Liz is just amazing anyway. She was actually a speaker at the event that I did, so you can see one of her videos of her speaking on my channel. Unfortunately, it's not her whole talk, which is a shame because it was just brilliant from start to finish. And she's also got lots of videos now on her own YouTube page, which I'll try and do a link to. You can find out a bit more about her. She's just an interesting person generally, and she's doing the soul readings, and I just think Liz is just a very positive person, and I feel very safe with her. You know, I think it is a vulnerable thing to sort of say, okay, look inside my soul, but I just think she just makes it, you know, a safe and great thing to be doing, so that it's really an empowering thing. Yeah, really good. So wanted to give that shout out to her, and that's also given me other things to look into over the last month or so, other areas to look into. So that's been really good. So on to the books that I've been reading. So first one, Qabalistic Tarot by Wang, and I've been reading that on the Kindle, which was a completely new experience for me. I haven't used the Kindle before, so that was completely new, and that's all gone very well. It was easy to use. There was one point where it needed charging and I couldn't find the charger. There was a little bit of an emergency there, but other than that, it's all been very straightforward, very easy. I don't know if this is the best book to have read on a Kindle because it's got a lot of diagrams in it. And in some ways it's a bit of a reference book really, so you might want to go back and look through it, which is probably not easiest to do on the Kindle. But for me, I just wanted to read through it, and I didn't feel the need to keep flitting about too much, so it was fine. So in this book, Wang is demonstrating the relationship between Hermetic Kabbalah and Tarot. He goes right through the whole deck of the tarot cards and talks and goes through the tree of life and things like that, and how they represent with each other. It's fully illustrated throughout, although to be honest, the Kindle version I was reading is a PDF, so it's probably not as clear as the book would be, I would imagine. He shows pictures from 4 decks of cards. There's the Golden Dawn deck, the Toss deck, Rider-Waite deck, and the Marseilles deck. I've got the Rider-Waite deck, and he sort of talks about all of them a little bit, because they're all a little bit different. Talks a lot about the tree of life and how these things relate to each other. And it's sort of taking these different orders. There's the Hermetic Kabbalah and the tarot and numbers and Hebrew symbols and meanings and all this stuff, and kind of trying to organise it a little bit. There's a lot of diagrams in the book, which are useful for learning all this stuff and pulling it all together and things like that. He discusses the search for truth, which is supposed to be what all these things are aiming towards, and I'm completely on board with that. I'm willing to look into that. I'm very open-minded, so I'm absolutely open to learning and giving it a try and trying to piece it together, see if I feel like, it works. I've also learned a lot more about Hermeticism, which before, when I heard this term Hermetic Kabbalah, I didn't really understand what that meant. I've learned a lot about Hermeticism, and one of the places I found really useful for learning about that is a YouTube channel called Esoterica, which I might try and put a link to as well. And this guy at that channel has got a lot of different videos about a lot of different things to do with ancient texts and different sort of searches for truth, and he is explaining them in a really great I wouldn't say too simplified, I suppose maybe probably is a bit simplified, but it's in a straightforward way that you can understand, but it's talking about some really detailed stuff and really interesting stuff. A couple of the videos I did find a bit boring, but a lot of them on there I found just massively interesting, and talking about things like sort of lost gospels and less known texts, which really interesting. I've really loved that channel, so I really highly recommend that as well. So, I talks about in this book as well, it's tying in astrology with that as well. So it's Kabbalah, tarot, astrology, numbers. I found that the book, as I find in a lot of these books, it's a very masculine interpretation of things, very much from a male point of view, particularly in terms of the masculine and feminine. And there's always this idea that we're all masculine and feminine, which I completely get. Neither is better or worse or whatever. It's equal and we're all the same. But obviously the male is always put up on this pedestal, and the feminine is always seen as this sort of darkness, chaos, evil side. It just pisses me off after a while. I do believe in genuine equality, genuine two sides of the same coin. But I do find in a lot of these things, although they say that, then when they start talking, it's very, very masculine interpretation, and the interpretations of the masculine sides of things are very masculine, and the interpretations of the feminine sides of things are very masculine point of view, and that gets quite irritating after a while. I didn't agree with many of the card meanings or conclusion or Kabbalah directions, which obviously is a little bit of a problem. And I certainly got pissed off with this masculine point of view. I also got a bit pissed off in the book because, this whole thing, this whole Hermetic Kabbalah and tarot thing, these people who know this shit, they think they're so intelligent. They really know it. They know it all. I don't have a lot of respect for that. But I did enjoy looking into some of the theories that were discussed, such as Hermeticism, the Emerald Tablet, Gnostic theories. I've tried. Actually, this channel, this Esoterica, has been really good for looking into Gnostic stuff, because before, when I've tried to look into that, I've never been able to get anything that really felt like it was looking at it in the wrong way. But through that channel, I've definitely felt like there's some really great resources there. And there are some interesting theories. As with everything, you know, I never think anything is the answer. But there's lots of interesting ways to look at things. And there are definitely some interesting ideas there, and especially in these theories of Earth as some sort of kind of hell dimension. And I got to thinking of that, not necessarily in the Gnostic way, but this idea that we're living in a hell dimension. And I just seem to find so much evidence to support that. It's quite frightening, actually, because it's one of those things that you don't want to think like that. You want to try and be positive. And you look at the beauty of the world and the wonder of the world and all the great things. But also, when you look at things that work, things that make sense, and how we want to live, and things that you think, nothing's done like that. You know, whether it's relationships or families or food or homes, nothing's done in the ways that, in good ways that I think people know that you don't always know all the details, but some people do. And it's never done like that, very rarely. And actually, you start looking at the way that things are done and the things that are pushed. You know, the greed culture and the power obsessed culture and trampling over people, and that's a good thing if you get what you want, and only looking out for a very small circle of people. The types of sex that are promoted, the family structures that are promoted, all these things which are not beneficial for people, for individuals, and certainly not for the whole. And you just think, in terms of that, it is a bit of a hell dimension. I was listening to Caroline Myss, who I also recommend massively because she's just like amazing. And she was saying something about like, what do you think it's easy to live here? That it's easy to be a good person here? And it's like, yeah. I mean, the Gnostic theories, I think, as far as I can tell, tend to think of humans as sort of fallen angels trapped in clay in this hell dimension. I don't know that I believe in that. And I think that the point is supposed to be to make good things on earth, to use those things, because it could be heaven on earth. It absolutely could be. But it's definitely not at the moment. Yes. So, anyway, they were interesting ideas to think about and get into. Right, let's try. I'm trying to do quotes from this Kindle, and I've done this, I think it's like a bookmarking thing. Let's see how well this works. Okay, so I'm just going to do a couple of quotes from here. So this quote, I can't remember what they're all about now because I read this a little while ago. I've been waiting to do this review. I had like this stupid cold that didn't go for ages. And I thought, I don't really want to do a video with my nose all red and crusty. Okay, so Malkuth, which is a place on the Tree of Life, a Sephiroth, is the most complicated of the Sephiroth. Kether is the most simple. And yet, applying the principle of as above, so below, we appreciate that Kether is in Malkuth, and Malkuth is in Kether. I might not be pronouncing these right. Ultimately, God is in everything we know, from the flower in the field to the dirt on which we walk. No matter what is on the earth is infused with the divine nature. The separation between creator and created is artificial. God is man. Man is God. We are God collectively, and we are God individually. We are parts, and we are the whole. The perceived separation is the result of the fall. And the great work of returning to the Godhead begins with the recognition, or perhaps the suspicion, that our perceptions have been inaccurate. Thus, to Malkuth is assigned the virtue of discrimination. Its spiritual experience is the vision of the holy guardian angel, an aspect of the higher self. It is in Malkuth that its existence is demonstrated, whereas to Tifereth is ascribed the conscious union of the personality with the higher genius. Now, I mean, there's stuff in there that's kind of important to think about. And this as above, so below thing, you know, is repeated a lot. And I think this idea of, you know, God is in everything and the whole, and we are that, and we have that power to create things. Is all interesting and important. Although there's this kind of, you know, there isn't a complete obsession in the book with the labels of the Sephiroth and and how that means something. Though also throughout the book, I felt that there was quite a lot of erroneous definitions. It even got to the point where it was a bit like Freud. You know, if you see my review for the Freud book, where, you know, like dog means cat, means sex, means this. You can kind of get to anywhere that you want to if you twist these definitions enough. And there's a lot of taking these kind of basic things which we can never quite put into words, never quite get our hands on. So I understand the point of putting a structure around it and trying to create rules about it. But then you've got, you know, kind of like 4 different separate things of rules in terms of the tree of life and the tarot and the astrology and the numbers, and showing how they're all linked. But then that link doesn't quite work, so we'll just change that bit a bit and change that. I don't know. One of the things that I liked in the book, which I don't know if he really liked, but it seemed to appeal to me, was this cube of space. I liked the cube of space. I think I like 3D images, so that sort of worked for me. But he did amuse me, because he said, when he starts talking about the cube of space, which is kind of taking all this stuff and putting it into a 3D cube image, which personally for me that made more sense, but it'd probably be a bit complicated for people. Anyway, a slight feeling of despair may be a common reaction to one's first encounter with this diagram, which may appear to add the last straw to what is an already unbearably heavy weight of symbolism. And I thought that was an excellent quote, because once you've gone through all these kind of diagrams and tables and stuff, because it's so like symbolism, and then you get to the cube of space where it's kind of taken into an even bigger thing. So at least you had the kind of sense of humour to accept that. Personally, though, I actually liked the cube of space. Anyway, other things in the book to just point out, there was a lot, again, the talk of snakes. And thank you to the people who answered my questions about the symbolism of snakes. But I still don't agree with those answers. I don't think, and he talks a lot in here about how the snakes are symbolistic of this Kundalini energy, sexual energy, and that it's a very good thing. And he even says, and also that lions and snakes are supposed to be the same thing, apparently. And then there's also this idea that it's called evil to conceal its holiness. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it. Snakes aren't nice. They're just not. And I refuse to accept a snake as the symbol for something which is supposed to be good. I just don't buy it. And then I started thinking, like, why don't they pick some other animals? You know, like, why not bears? You know, or there are so many other animals that you could think of as strength and power and whatever. Why a snake? Anyway, so that was another thing that came up. And yeah, just the kind of underlying misogyny really kind of got to me. And I started feeling that it was a bit of a trial to get through the book. And actually, by the end of it, what I think I really realised is that I'm a bit bored of tarot and Kabbalah. Okay. And then when I was on Goodreads, which I go on quite a lot to read people's reviews of other books to see whether it's something I think I want to read, I was looking up a book by Israel Regardie. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And there was somebody on there, Alexander, who'd done a very good review of it. And right near the end of his review, he said this, and it really just struck me that actually, yes, that's how I kind of feel about this book that I've just read and this whole subject. So he said, in closing, I have to say that I think that these Western, occult, mostly Jewish and Egyptian-inspired practices should be avoided. I don't think they produced many enlightened people, or even one. They usually breed even more intellectualism, elitism, because they are usually performed by secret, invite-only groups, and don't lead a person to absolute love and reabsorption into God. They usually create Luciferian-minded people, very capable in the material, who misuse the knowledge that they obtain, moral relativists, like most Freemasons, who only care about their own. Aleister Crowley is the most influential of these people, and he was a heroin addict, a sexual deviant, liar, and abandoned his children. There's simply no need for these paths. Make silent meditation, prayer and self-observation your main practice methods. Practice lasts 24 hours every single day, and you will safely advance at the pace that's right for you and get knowledge that's unique to you and your situation. We need to cleanse ourselves of the intellectual ballast we carry, not add even more to it. But it's easier said than done, especially today. And I wanted to read that out because I just couldn't have worded it better. That's just really how I felt by the end of this book. And I read that review and I just thought, you've just put into words exactly how I feel having finished this book. So that's the end of that. I might give books on tarot and Kabbalah a rest for a while. So on to the other book that I read, which is Brutally Honest by Melanie Brown. I wanted to read this book because I have an interest in the Spice Girls. The Spice Girls got big in sort of, what was it, 97, around then, and I was just the perfect age to enjoy them and be interested in them and influenced by them, and I just have general interest in them because of that. And probably my favourite Spice Girl was Jerry, but closely followed by Mel B. And actually reading through the book, they were both quite close and got on very well, and I've got that similar nature of just sort of crazy and wild and confident, and very confident. I think that's a good role model. So yeah, I was interested to read her book. I saw her on, so I don't really pay much attention to like celebrity stuff really, but I saw her on something a few years ago talking about how she'd come out of this really terrible abusive marriage, and I was so surprised. I just thought, oh my god, I would never expect somebody like Mel B to be, in this really horrible oppressive marriage. So that gave me an interest to look out her autobiography and read it. So she talks a lot about her husband, and it sounds pretty awful. I know it's one-sided, it's her opinion, but it sounds pretty terrible, and I really, really felt for her reading it. She also talks about her upbringing, which I found really interesting. I just love hearing about people's upbringings and just their different family situations. I'm just very nosy and love hearing about that. She talks about joining the Spice Girls and their early time. She talks about her first marriage. And then she talks about her second marriage, in sort of more detail. And I think that whole term gaslighting is really sort of summed up by her experience that she had. And, it was surprising. And he did really sort of find her out at an incredibly vulnerable time in her life. I'm not, I think she admits herself she made some bad choices, bad decisions. And she even says, that at the time when he was showing her an interest in her, it was a distraction. She'd not long come out of her relationship with Eddie Murphy and had their baby. And I remember actually at the time, I couldn't believe that the whole thing with Eddie Murphy. It was just like, oh my God, how can you say that? So she just had, that going on, and this was a distraction for her. And she was incredibly vulnerable. She just had a baby. And this person really swooped in and really, got inside her and got control of her. I felt in the book that she was brutally honest, as the book is called. I'm sure she still has her own things that she's kept back, but there was a lot that she talked about in there that I was, surprised by, and also that I thought, wow, I can't believe you've admitted to that. Like, I would never admit to that. That's just seriously embarrassing. That's terrible. And when it got to the whole bit of the details of her marriage and the way that sex was used against her and these tapes and things, I really felt for her. I really, really did. Really awful. And also she talks about her dad dying. That was very, very sad as well. So, I did enjoy the book. I thought it was a good book, good autobiography. The thing that I was only really disappointed with was I felt that the book was really badly edited. I read quite a lot of books that people have self-published or just done by really, some really tiny publishers, and I can be quite forgiving of bad editing and typos and things like that. But when it's, this is Melanie Brown's autobiography, I would expect it to be really good. and there were loads of typos in it. And just some absolute mistakes. I think, I can't remember now exactly, but I'm sure there was a bit as well where they talk about the Spice Girls in 1987, which is obviously just a time, and it's like, my God, come on. Sometimes as well, the way it was written didn't feel like it was written in the best way. There were a lot of full stops, which made reading it quite, you know, didn't really flow, and a bit too much skipping about at certain times. And I don't usually mind that, but this was just a bit too much to try and keep. I think as well some of the details were wrong, because there was a certain point of skipping about, and it was like talking about being postnatal, and then skipping to like, and then it was pregnant, and then not, and it's like this. There's obviously an error here, and because it's skipping about, it's just not working. But it was, you know, really good. It's action-packed. She discusses lots of things. And yeah, it was all good. Enjoyed it. I liked hearing, she's got a very strong work ethic, hearing about her sort of growing up and having this real raw ambition to get out and be part of the world. Yeah, it was really good. It's also interesting to hear that she was into Reiki and stuff like that. She seems quite spiritual as well. And, you know, I just hope she's happy, really. It sounded like she'd had a pretty crap time. So, yeah, hopefully she's happy. Okay, so that was that book. The book I'm reading now is Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe, which is like something completely different. And that's going pretty well. I'm about halfway through that. So I'll be looking forward to giving a review for that next month. Okay, have a lovely Christmas. It's not long to go now, just a few days. All ready for Christmas. Okay, thank you.